So we now move into the execution phase proper. And we're going to begin by determining initiative, where we have a simultaneous die roll with some modifiers. And those modifiers are based on who had the initiative last turn. They get a +1. That's the Russians, they had a +1. If a side drew 2 electronic warfare chits in the command phase, remember the Russians did, so they get another +1, so they're at +2. If you'd eliminated any enemy units, you'd have got a modifier as well. That didn't happen. And then there is a difference between the command ratings of the 2 HQs on the map. Let me just show. The command rating is the small number in yellow. You can see that the Ally command rating is 3. The Russian one is 2, so there's a -1 +1 there. So all in all, +1 on both sides when that is all calculated. So we roll the dice, and the Russians on a 5 to 3 are going to have the initiative. That allows them to decide who will play first in the ensuing turn. The Russians are going to maintain the initiative and act first. We're going to go on the front foot on this. And the first thing they're going to do is, instead of activating one of their task groups on the map, is bring in some of their off-map assets. As you can see here, they have 2 off-map assets. I've just put them onto the map here to show you. They have some 152mm artillery, and the number next to it is the number of rounds that it has left, which is 3. It has to last for the rest of the game. And then they have a first-person view drone with 4 attacks left. So in this instance, I'm going to use the first-person drone and see if I can dent some of the NATO pieces that are in the way of my advancing troops. If we look at the sync matrix for the FPV, you will see that it is grid square E23 N22. So if we come back to the map, E23 N22, well, this grid line here is E23, N22 is this grid square here. So what I'm going to do is I am going to drop, and I'll just place it on the map here for the sake of showing it, the FPV drone to mark the unit that it is going to attack. Now, the important thing to also notice is that positioned here on this grid square is my spotting drone, my unarmed drone, which are always placed on the center point, and they provide line of sight to all of the 4 hexes which they are touching. So you'll notice that this drone has line of sight, or provides line of sight, to these 4, including the grid square that is being targeted by the FPV drone. So the steps we need to take are, first of all, as we've just done, to declare the target. That target must be within line of sight of a friendly I-star unit, which that UAS is, and the counters on the map that provide I-star spotting all have a little star on them, so that helps the identification. If I choose, I could now also play a target marker, and And I think I'm going to. So if you remember, I generated for the Russians this target marker from the previous electronic transmissions in the preceding turn. So that's going to give a +1 DRM. And then we are going to roll 2d6. Before then, I'm just going to show you this rather useful chart here that for all of the different indirect fire options open to you, just helps you run through. So FPVs require an I-star to provide line of sight. There's no restriction on FPV. You'll notice that mortars have an 8,000 meter range. Danger close restriction, that means you can't fire if you have friendly units within 250 meters, but in this instance, or 500 meters with artillery, but in this instance, again, it doesn't apply for FPVs. They can't fire smoke. Automatic suppression, any unit, foot unit or FE within 250 meters of the strike will be automatically suppressed. And then you can see the cost, the electronic cost or transmission cost that is generated by this action. Now, if it's within the fire plan area, there's none. If it's outside the fire plan area, you generate 3 of those markers. Well, the good news is that this is within the fire plan within the sync matrix. So it's not going to generate any ETX. Before I come to the die roll, let's just quickly for the first time show the DRMs. So the value of a target marker, +1 or +2, in this instance +1. Does a UAS have line of sight to the target? Yes, +2, so we're now at +3. Does a friendly recce have line of sight to the target? Now, it does, because I'm just going to swing the camera around. We can see this recce unit down here in the bottom right. This does have a line of sight to the target marker because this is a light obstruction, light woods, so it doesn't block the line of sight. So that's an additional +1. So we're now at +4. Is the target in a foot unit in light wood, light urban? Now, this is where the positioning on the map is important. And what you'll notice is that the Allied unit, although it is on the fringe of that wood, is not actually in the wood. It's to be kind of within the wood, it would have to be more explicitly placed over the wood and to explicitly stated as much. In this instance, it is just outside, and so it will gain no benefit from being within that light wood. Has it got a moved marker? No, it doesn't. Does it have a digging or shell scrape marker? Well, it does. So there's -2. And is the target a tracked type? Well, it's not a tracked type. It is a foot infantry unit, so no benefit there. So when we top those all up together, there's going to be a +2 on this die roll. So the Russians with a +2 on their die roll, and we have, oh, it's a cop dice, I'm going to roll that again. 2, sorry, it's 2d6, what am I talking about? 5 + 2 is 7. If we come back to the fire results table, FPV 7, that is a miss. An 8 needed 1 higher, it would have done 1 step loss of damage. So unsuccessful and somewhat frustrating for the Russians. So we remove that. I knocked down its number of strikes left from 4 to 3 off map, and I'm going to mark it as having activated, so we know that the FPV cannot activate again this turn. Before I move on too quickly, though, there is something worth pointing out, that FPVs have the option for a double tap strike, which means that, again, using another of their available strike missions, in the same turn they can hit the same target a second time. Now, there may be an advantage in doing that, having missed first time, but there are 3 turns after this left, and only 3 more strikes available to that FPV unit. So I think at this point I want to preserve that. So I'm not going to use the double tap option. Time for the NATO forces to hit back, and they're going to ape the Russians by using their own FPV, and they are going to target this stack here. So if we work through, we see that the line of sight is provided by the UAS here, so that's all good. Its fire plan for the FPV is 25 E22, G25 E22. Oh, that's actually G25 E20. In fact, it's this square. So I think I'm going to assign it to this stack rather than this stack, because it needs to be firing within its fire plan. We've got no target marker benefit. We do have a line of sight to the target of +2 from a UAS. We have no friendly recce that can provide line of sight. There's no benefit from cover in a light wood, and they're not dug in. So it's a +2. So being out in the open, exposed like that, is slightly problematic for the Russians. With a +2, okay, 9 +2 is 11. That's 11 plus, which is 2 strikes against this stack. It's important, however, at this point to realise that, of course, that this tracked unit has an infantry unit mounted within it. So, in this instance, for each hit against a tracked FE that has a mounted FE, we roll a 1d6. And on a 4+, the mounted FE takes a hit in addition to the hit that the tracked unit took. So the first thing we have to do is, we'll notice here that this the tracked unit has a resilience of 3, effectively 3 steps. So we reduce 1, we're down to 2, and then we have to take another one. So we remove that counter and replace it with its matching counter from off the map. There we are. Now down to just 1 step. But because these were mounted, they can potentially take damage themselves. So on a 4+, they will also take hits themselves. I'm going to roll the 2 dice, 1 for each of the hits. There's a 4 and a 3. So the mounted unit takes 1 hit of its own. So that is reduced from a 3 to a 2. Now we can stack them back up again. And of course, as a result of being hit, the unit or the stack takes a suppression. We're going to mark that there. That suppression reduces its troop quality and has effect on its movement capability, which is now going to be reduced by 50%. So bearing in mind, it needs to get into this hex by the end of the turn over here. That's going to slow it up and potentially mean it's not going to meet its objective for this turn, but we'll come to that at a later stage. Like the Russians, the FPV chooses not to double tap. It only has 2 strikes left, 3 turns to go. So it's happy that it's caused the damage it has. I mean, it could go for the elimination at this point, but we may need that drone strike later on. And so the turn switches back to the Russians. Okay, so Russian orders split in 2 basic parts. This task group 1 at the top here has to reach this grid by the end of the 3rd turn, so this turn and then the next turn, and ultimately then push across the bridge. There is no way across the river up here except via this bridge. There are no bridges for elsewhere on the river. So they are going to have to come in here, though it does look to me like the NATO defence is pretty threadbare, but we shall see. Meanwhile, these 2 task groups, task group 2 and 3, are heading here, and then a push up through Cindy, presumably meeting up with task group 1. Recce unit down here, task group 4, has reached E25, N21 in its first turn, so it met that objective. Its objectives now are to screen Cindy Bridge. Now, screening in the terminology of the game means, and there's a useful description of all the terms that can be used in the sync matrix. It's only a small selection of the terms available to a professional army, but more than sufficient for this purpose. Screen is to observe, identify and report info on threats to the main force and will only fight in self-protection. Essentially, the Recce unit is providing line of sight that we've seen it employ in earlier combat in terms of the artillery. So it's going to be without any specific location specified, able to move to provide that sort of support. I think I'm going to begin by offering a bit of cover to the task group 1 by pushing on here. So I'm going to activate task group 3. So that's these two groups here. They have on the sync matrix just this turn to maneuver to E23, N21, this grid here. So that is precisely what they're going to do. Now, the actions that are available to stacks or individual units are really quite simple. They can move. They can conduct in fire, direct fire. They can take a move and fire action, which comes with penalties to the fire element. And then there's the indirect fire for the off-map artillery and so on. And then there's an action called assault, which is, I suppose, a close combat, and which we will come to at a later point. Units can also hold, which means you can do a very small bit of repositioning in place. And you can overwatch and dig shell scrape, which we've seen. That's to overwatch is to set yourself in sort of reactive mode, and shell scrape is to effectively dig in. So these 2 units are going to attempt to move here, and it shouldn't be too difficult for them. Now, how far can units move? Well, the movement table here shows you. And so what we're looking here is tracked vehicle, because what we have here is a on Taskgroup 3, that tracked unit there with some infantry mounted in it. And tracked vehicle in open ground can move 2,000 meters. There's some very interesting calculations to be done when you move through different types of terrain. But in this instance, it's all open terrain, so 2,000 meters. And what I love about this game is you don't have to be completely precise. It's perfectly fine between players to sort of come to an agreed sense about what 2,000 meters represent. I mean, if you want to get a ruler out, I suppose you can do. But essentially we're looking at, and we're going to move with this one first, 2,000. Well, if we, again, reminder, that's 1,000 wide. So 2,000, the first 1,000 is going to bring that to here. And the second is going to bring it in here. Now, I could meet that objective by moving into this light wood. To do so would provide a bit of cover. But I've got other units coming down, which we're not all going to fit in that light wood, I don't think. So I think this one is simply going to plough on and continue moving. However, before that, it's going to fire, so take a move and fire action. The way it works, and I slightly skipped, was I should have said before I began the move, is that I intend to do a fire and move. And the process is that you say where that stack or unit is going to move from and where it intends to end. Because that allows any unit that is on overwatch on the opposing side to reactive fire first. And the non-activating side can declare if they're going to reactive fire and at which point in the movement they will do so. Now, this unit is simply going to move right into the center of the hex. But what it's going to do is, before it gets there, is it is going to fire, and I'm just going to mark it, from this position before eventually arriving here. Now, why is it doing that? It's because its stabber has a range of 3,000 meters. No problem, it's going to fire at this unit. Whereas this infantry unit with its N-law can only fire 1,000 meters. So 1,000 meters it can fire to there. So by firing from here, and in fact, yes, that rocket propelled grenade can only fire 1,000 meters. And how do you know that? Well, let's forward in and take a closer look at the units. As you can see on the weapons units, there's a number 3, and for the RPG here, a 1. That's basically the number of thousands of meters that those can fire. So the RPG here and that infantry is unable to hit anything that's out of range, but the stabber certainly can. So let's conduct that direct fire and see what impact it has. The tracked unit is the only unit that can fire. The mounted infantry cannot. The only thing a mounted unit can do is dismount. So we don't need to worry about the unit underneath. So we are going to fire with the stabber. Now, it would be possible for the tracked vehicle just to simply fire with its own weaponry. And how do we know what it can fire at? Well, this is where these color codings work. What you'll see along the top are the kind of attack values, 2, 2, and 6, but in 3 different colors. And those colors correspond to the sort of the units that you're attacking and show you which units you can attack. So this tracked unit can attack green defensive units, and if we look at the infantry NATO piece, you can see to the left of the NATO symbol that F in a green diamond indicates that it is foot, but it is green. Therefore, it can be attacked by a unit that has a green strength, or yes, a green attack strength. Similarly, a tracked unit can also attack units that are purple in colour. So, for example, it could attack another purple unit like itself. The white number at the end there is used in assaults, and we'll come to those later. That means, therefore, that this infantry unit, which as you'll see here has a green number up the top, which means that it can attack green units, so in other words, other infantry units, and it can take part, and effectively so, in assault. Coming back to this particular attack, we are in fact going to stick with the stabber. I'm going to use the stabber to see if it can really, it's slightly more effective. It's rolls on a slightly more advantageous column on the fire results table, as we shall see in a moment, than if it fired using its own strength of 2. So the first thing is to make sure that we've got line of sight. We do. We're just going to check that unit is in heavy wood, but it is not the other side of the wood, therefore we can fire into that wood. The line of sight is not blocked. We next, if we wanted, would play a target marker, but the Russians have used the target marker they had and gained at the start of the turn. And then we roll 2d6. Let's roll those 2d6. And what we've rolled, interesting, an 8. We're now going to apply some DRMs, and I'm just going to work through them rather than showing you the chart, whether we would use target markers as if there were. And then we look at the troop quality of the firing unit. That's the number to the right, and it's a 5, and a 5 gives a +1. So we're up to 9. The firing unit has an overwatch marker. Well, not in this instance. It's moving. A foot unit in dense wood or dense urban firing at a tracked or wheeled FE in the same dense wood or urban. That does not apply. Does the line of sight pass through light wood, light urban or smoke? No. Is the target foot FE in light wood, light urban or dense wood and dense urban? Yes. There's a -2. So we are now at -1. Finally, does the target have digging or shell scrape? Yes. Shell scrape gives -2, so we're now at -3. And then finally, the firing unit is taking a move fire action, which for NATO is -2. So that comes to -5 in total. So that reduces that 8 to 3. And 3, using a stabber, is just a miss. Let me show you here, the table here. So stabber, cross-reference, so stabber down here, and 3 is a miss. For 1 higher, and we would have suppressed that unit. So that's unlucky, and that just shows the strength of being dug in and also being in that dense wood. So we flip over the stabber to show that it has used one of its 2 available shots, and we then continue the movement that was stipulated at the start of the turn, and we said it was going to arrive here. Now it can't get closer than 250 meters. It has to stay within 250 meters, but we're going to just come there. Let's just make sure that's okay. That's fine. Now at this point, the Allied NATO infantry unit could choose to conduct its reactive fire or wait till it is its own turn and reactive fire itself, but I think it's going to and fire, I beg your pardon, in its own turn. However, Task Group 3 is going to be sending in another unit, and there's nothing to say that it won't take a shot in the same way that its partner unit did. And so I think we're not going to hang around, but we are going to fire back at this unit, which we mark as having moved. So it's exactly the same principle. In this instance, we're going to fire, and we have to fire with the N-law, because remember, infantry has green capability to hit green units. That tracked vehicle is a purple unit. So the N-law, it's effective, particularly at short range. So we do exactly the same as we did previously. With that, I'm going to roll the dice. Oof, this is interesting. So 11. So that's the base roll. No target marker played. The troop quality is 6. 6 gives a +2, so we're now up to 13. The firing FE has an overwatch marker. Yes, another +2, so we're up to 15. Then we can ignore that and that. The target does not have digging, and so at 15 on the N-law, that is 11 plus, that is 2 hits. So we're going to begin by reducing that tracked vehicle from 3. It has a sort of 3 cohesion points to 2, and we're now going to replace it 3 to 1. So it's now down to a kind of 1 hit point. We're going to suppress because it's been hit. But then we also have to remember that because there are mounted units, infantry units inside, that for each hit against a stack with a mounted unit, we roll 1d6, and on a 4+, the mounted units inside take collateral damage, as it were. So we had 2 hits, so we rolled 2 dice, 4 or above. It's a 2 and a 4, so that unit, that infantry unit inside there, is going to take 1 hit of its own, so that's reduced to a 2. Now we flip the N-law to show that it's now got only 1 shot left, and the overwatch has been activated and is flipped, so they can't now overwatch on anything else coming in. So if we now just zoom back out, Task Group 3, its second unit, which is currently suppressed and received a suppression earlier on, that's going to have an impact on its movement, which is reduced by 50%. So a tracked unit can normally move 2,000 in open space, but in this instance can only move 1,000. So we're just going to go kind of, if you think about its position there, it could reach to about there, so probably just about here is about 1,000 meters. Hasn't quite reached its objective, but the task group as a whole, I mean, whether every unit has to, I mean, this is one of the discussion points you can have between you as players. I think we can say probably that it has reached. Now, it's not going to do a move and fire because it can't get into a position where it won't be firing through its own unit, which will, I don't think there's any way really of doing it. I think that's going to kind of clip it. So it gets there, and we mark Task Group 3 as having activated, and we're going to mark this unit as having moved. The NATO decision, I think, is actually quite simple, and what we're going to do for them is use this mortar unit up here. Now, the sync matrix for the mortar is to, in its the first two turns of the game, is to hit this grid square, and at a later stage, the grid square that it targets will change. So this is the last time that it can, or the last turn that it can hit this grid square, and we're going to want to do it before task group 2 moves and gets out of there, which it is almost certainly going to do at some point, and pretty well immediately. So we're going to carry out an indirect fire, and we're going to attack this stack here, because if you remember, the local jamming means that this particular stack cannot be located by the UAS, and we need that UAS to be providing line of sight. The mortar obviously doesn't have line of sight itself, but is being guided by the UAS over here. Indirect fire, we'll go through the process again. We declare the target, must be within line of sight of a friendly ICE-STAR unit. Well, the UAS is providing that ICE-STAR line of sight. Within range of a mortar. The mortar has an 8,000 or 8 kilometer range, so that's no problem at all. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5, no problem. Play a target marker, no target marker available. An EW chit. So, I think I used that earlier on. I've forgotten now whether I used my chit, but for UAS coordination, target grants +4. I believe I did when I attacked there. So if I didn't, oh well, it doesn't matter. But we'll assume that the that it doesn't gain the benefit of that. And then we roll 2d6. Oh well, that's not going to work. So I've rolled double 1, so that's a 2, and so okay, we're going up to 4 because of UAS with line of sight. There's no friendly recce unit providing additional line of sight. The target gains no kind of cover bonus. It hasn't moved, so it doesn't gain a bonus from there, nor is it in a dug cell, in a shell scrape, I beg your pardon. It is tracked, so there's a -3, so 2 - 3, that's a complete fail, and the mortar is activated. Task group 4 has taken its turn. With that, I think this particular video has been going on long enough, so I will return in the next to complete the turn.